Well, hey, y'all, this is Ray Scott here, and you're listening to the Midwest Mixtape podcast live from the barn.
Well, I ain't no bad guy nor a loser, but lately it's feeling that way. Last night I passed out with my boots on. Oh, it's a cold, lonely bed that I've made. 'Cause I ain't always in love when I make love. Sometimes I don't feel a thing. And I ain't often hurting when I medicate. And I ain't always thirsty when I drink. But it ain't like I woke up this morning.
Hi, and welcome to the Midwest Mixtape podcast, live from the Barn Studio. You got the Mox here, and I'm joined online on Zoom right now. We finally connected. Mr. Ray Scott. Ray, how are you, man? Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Good to be here. I'm good. How about yourself?
Doing really good. I am a big Ray Scott fan, and it's actually kind of weird how we connected. We were lucky enough to talk to Tracy Bird a couple weeks ago. And, and I think he shared our post out or something, and you ended up commenting on it. And I'm like, well, hell, I'm a Ray. Here, I got to shoot my shot, right? So you were in the comment section. I was like, Ray, we'd love to do it with you as well. So thanks for making this happen, man.
Hey, man, absolutely. Thanks for asking, man. I'm a big fan of Tracy, not only as an artist but as a guy. He's a stand-up dude, man. Nice guy. He's
about as real as they get, right? And when we talk about like your sound is a traditional country sound, which I think most people would agree to that. He's as classic country as it gets. And I was just really not surprised, but just excited that he just was as genuine as can be. And you love, they always say never meet your heroes, but when you do, and they're on the good side of that, it's just special,
Yeah, man. I've always heard don't meet your heroes, and I've had a couple of instances over the years that I've, regretted a little bit when it comes to that. I won't name names, but but I will tell you this from doing this for so long. This business sometimes can beat you up, and if you've had a bad day on the road, or if you're, of course, you learn the hard way after a while too. If you're out there drinking, a lot of times, man, you might have a pretty rough hangover the day of a show or something, and that'll turn you into an asshole sometimes, and so you definitely live and learn. But all of us kind of have our moments. I've never been around Tracy when he wasn't, just as genuine and nice as he could be.
You talk about your career at this point, and I think, is it next year that My Kind of Music turns 20 years old? Is that right?
Yeah. This year, it'll be this coming September, I guess, for the single at least, and then in the record, I think maybe October, November, something like that. So, yeah, that's hard to believe, man. To be better looking 20 years later, I mean, it's almost.
You're turning back the clock there.
Yeah, man. I got a song on my Wrong Songs album called "Everybody Ends Up Ugly." It's kind of talking about the reality of aging. So.
Yeah. So when you think back to that, that was really the kickoff to your major professional career. And what were the years like before that? Was it a lot of bars and honky talks and playing the weekend shows and playing in, covers and 3 hours?
Yeah, there was some of that. I kind of, I've been in Nashville for, God knows, man, long time, almost 30 years now. And And, I was playing the bars, I was doing some of that stuff, but I was more concentrating on a lot of times the songwriters nights and doing the songwriters rounds and that kind of stuff. And, I got my first developmental like publishing type deal back in like 97 with, that was with Acuff Rose. And I was green as a gourd, but that was my first experience with it. And I spent probably more time, I was lucky enough to have a little bit of, some chops writing for a while there. And it enabled me to get in and get a couple of publishing deals early on. And so I was concentrating more on kind of learning the craft of songwriting more and trying to do that. And luckily I was making enough money that I didn't have to go down and, play for tips on Broadway, man. I mean, that's a grind. But I knew a lot of people that did, and I did my share of covers and that kind of stuff. But, I just came to town, with the intent of being a songwriter. And that was my focus mainly. I wanted to make records, but I wanted to be, the guy who wrote the songs. And because that was kind of always my thing growing up, man. I was kind of the nerdy kid, the quiet kid in the corner that, didn't really play sports much or whatever. And, my grandma, and my mother actually early on kind of caught on to the fact that I was into writing poetry. I mean, even when I was, God, I don't know, as far back as 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, 12, and my grandmother used to bribe me. She would, say, hey, if you write me a poem, I'll give you $10, and so, that was kind of her way and my mom's way of sort of, pushing me in that direction because I guess they saw, at least an interest in it, maybe not so much of a professional ability at that point or anything. And, not to say that I'm great at it now, but it's always been something that I've been interested in and I enjoyed it a lot. And, whenever I come up with something that I feel is unique or, it's a rare occasion that I'll write a song that truly excites me, especially these days, because I think you get harder on yourself as you go. But that to me is one of the best days. And the second best is, is standing on stage somewhere or sitting in a stool somewhere and playing that song for the first time or hell, maybe it's the 100th time and watching people react in a positive way, or sing along, it doesn't get much better than that, man. It's extreme validation and makes me feel like I wasn't wrong to pursue this,
Do you still get excited about it after all these years? I mean, you've had the major label deal. You've seen, I would say, almost every side of the music business, and I'm sure it can be ugly, and I'm sure there's some nasty side to it. Are you still excitable?
Dude, I a lot of people will tell you that, I don't, maybe I don't have an excited face, I'm a little bit laid back, but yeah, I still do get excited about it, man. If there's, and it's all about an original idea that just kind of falls out the right way. And you realize after doing this for years, you can get good at the craft of it, but there's still only going to be a limited number of days when you come out with something with that, extra special sauce on it, you know what I mean? And, and those are great days. And I still do get excited about that. I just put my 11th album out, man, a few months ago. And here, a lot of times during the making of a record, I don't really get I don't really, I'm not really in a creative space when it comes to writing because I'm focused in on the songs I'm working on at the time, kind of trying to, have those come together the way I want them to sound. And it's almost like this switch kind of turns off creatively when it comes to writing new stuff. But it never fails, man. As soon as one project is finished, it seems like it automatically puts me back into a different headspace, and I start writing again. And some days you get excited about something, and then you realize maybe a couple of weeks later you're not excited about it anymore. but sometimes you write something and it stays hot. It stays hot on your mind, and that's what it's all about, man. It's tough. It's emotional journey. I mean, it'll kick your ass too. I think I've had a lot of times that, for whatever reason here lately, I lost my parents a couple of years ago, and they like 3 weeks apart, and that's something that I've been dealing with. I think it's really weird trying to grieve both parents at once, if you know what I mean. It's like you don't, it's hard to describe, but so there's been some dark days, and a lot of stuff has kind of come from that. And I've always loved the sort of dark songs, stuff that's based in a kind of a shitty reality, a grim reality that you live in. I mean, none of us ever completely escape from the throes of depression at times, and a lot of us have it worse or better than others. I've always sort of, I can, when I'm in a hole, it's like, oh hell, here we go, and but it's been such a writing has been such an escape for me. It's been extremely. I mean, anybody will tell you that does this. I mean, writing is extremely therapeutic, and number one for yourself. And some of these songs may never see the light of day, or nobody else. Other people may not hear them all. But yeah, so that's kind of where I've been, and I don't I don't see it stopping. I see it evolving. I feel it evolving, and sometimes sometimes the stuff that comes out might end up being something that only appeals to me, and but that is part of the process. Every now and again you'll write something that appeals to yourself, and then you'll realize that it's also pretty universal. But the only way that you can do that is to write it and then have the balls to put it out there, and let the scrutiny happen. I don't pretend to assume that everything I've ever released was something that everybody would love, but there was always a reason I did it, and and that's the way it's going to continue to be. And I think folks they cherry pick, man. There's stuff that appeals to certain people, and then there's other things for other people, and as long as I've got somebody liking something, that's what it's all about to me. Different people are at different stages in their life, including you and me, and there's no telling what's going to appeal to us on any given day more than another one. It's funny. Years ago, man, I had a song that I co-wrote that went on to be a top 10 hit for Clay Walker. Now it's called "A Few Questions." It was an album. It was his album title track. This has been 20 years ago, probably 22 years ago. But it's a song it's a very serious song. It's about like asking God, hey, if I had a chance to talk to him, these are a few questions I would ask. And it's a lot of it's about the unfairness of life and some of the things that happen to us. And I remember we had pitched that song to I think his A&R person at one point. And I guess they just weren't in the headspace to listen to it or whatever, because that happens. And then the song plugger actually went back to him with it, I think maybe a few weeks later. And for whatever reason, on that day, I think this person had just lost a family member. I think maybe their kid had gotten killed in a car wreck, maybe. So they, so it appealed to them. All of a sudden, the song spoke to them, Same song we played them a month ago, but so then they sent the song to Clay. And I knew at the time that Clay had just recently been diagnosed, I think, with MS. And that's something he's been dealing with for a long time. And this was a song I thought would really appeal to him. And sure enough, thankfully it did. And but it's just one of those things where it's like, this song completely went over the head of this one person, this one integral person, one day. And then the next time we played it for him, just a few weeks later, it was like a eureka moment for them. So, all these songs, depending on the person, depending on the day or the time of life, they end up kind of finding their space. And I just, after doing this for so long, you learn that after a while, and it's such a blessing to learn that, to discover that, and it's tough along the way though, because for every yes you get, for every song you have that gets recorded by someone else, if you are pitching songs to another artist, every song you have that gets recorded by someone else, there's probably 50 others that have been pitched that that never got that opportunity. So it's like sales, man. It's a law of averages, and it's just all about kind of sticking with it, But at the end of the day, I didn't move to town to become a songwriter just to write songs for other people. But the times that I've had my stuff recorded by other people, man, that's been I've been so honored by it. I had Randy Travis cut a couple of my songs a few years ago. I had Trace Atkins cut a couple of them. That's, hey, I can write these songs and record them myself and sing them for people all day long. And I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. But when someone else decides that one of your songs is good enough and speaks to them enough to make it be one of 10 or 12 songs on their own album, that's a whole different thing, man. And that's really cool.
You kind of talk about, songs changing meanings for your audience. Have you ever written a song where the meaning changed for you, depending on life circumstances or things you went through? A song that you actually wrote kind of just feels different in a way because of life things that happen and that experience that you have?
Yeah, definitely. Well, one song that is from my very first album that I still play live, especially in the band shows, a song called Dirty Shirt. And, it was written as my dad's he did a couple of tours in Vietnam. He was in the Army. He was, one of these guys who was profoundly affected by that war and the things he saw. He was always a quiet guy. He wasn't much of a hands-on dad necessarily, but he went to work and he brought home the check and he made sure we were taken care of in that way. We never were very close. Country music was our bond. But I wrote this song as a dedication to him, just kind of talking about the blue collar guys that are kind of like that, who, kind of the man's man back in the day when being, vulnerable and all that kind of stuff was not what they did. But it was, it was something that I wrote for him at the time. Now, and it was always kind of a crowd favorite. There was a lot of people that could relate because it reminded them of their own father. Well, since my dad passed away, that song just hits me in a totally different way now. Obviously I still mean every word of it, but to have him gone, now that's a memory to me now, and it's not an everyday fact. And you have big life changes that happen that you don't realize how it's going to change you and affect you like that. But that's one example of that. He's not here anymore. All I have is a memory of him. He was such a big influence on me. He was a guy who loved country music. He was a singer as well on a local level. Growing up, most of the reason that I ever got into doing this was because of him, because it was just kind of put in me from an early age, just from being around him. He never pushed me to do it. But I think it was my, once I realized that I wanted to do it and pursue it, I realized also that my dad, especially once I got a couple of cuts and once I got a record deal or whatever, my dad was living vicariously through me because I was doing a lot of the things that he always dreamed of doing. He never, he actually had an opportunity. Don Gibson, I don't know if you remember that name, old country artist from back when. I think my dad was at a show Don did down in I want to say let's see, Tallahassee maybe years ago, and my dad sang for him. Don was like, "Hey man, you got a great voice. If you come to town, I'll see if I can't help you out or whatever." So I think my dad for a minute kind of toyed with the idea of moving to Nashville and pursuing it. But not long after I came along, and then my two younger brothers were all, within 4 years of, all three of us, it's a 4-year window there. So, and he made the decision to kind of stay behind, keep a good job, and just take care of his family. So I think there was probably a part of him that always wondered what if. And so to see me get out there and do this, pursue this, and at least see some success, early on in the mainstream, although it was short-lived, he was still very proud of the fact that, that it did happen that way and that I was doing it on my own terms. And, so that was something that we did share, when I was an adult, that kind of, it was really special to me. It still is, because that was, like I say, that was our connection. Music, and that was just about it as far as that went.
Well, three boys would be a handful, right?
Yeah, no shit. That's three.
Can we, a couple years ago, you put out an album. It's my favorite of yours, Guitar for Sale.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about that album a little bit? And,
Sure.
like songs like Living This Way and Sobering Up, and then the title track is just a phenomenal record. Tell us a little bit about Guitar for Sale, if you don't mind.
Well, it's funny, man. The song, I've been kind of walking around with that idea for a while, and it's, hey, look, man, it's tough. Life is tough. Relationships are tough in general. But when you're, in the music business, it's really tough. But whenever you're, I think, in a job that you're, where you're doing a lot of traveling, period, and you're away from home, it makes it all that more challenging. And, there was, I guess, I basically pictured the situation that, at the time, I didn't really have any intention of selling my guitar or getting out of the business, there was never a plan B for me, so this was always it. But I kind of came up with it because I was having a lot of marital problems at the time. And I kind of realized that maybe if I had given this up, that a lot of that might go away, or it might, it might be a little bit easier to deal with if this wasn't what I was doing, I mean, I was kind of the typical guy that got out on the road and enjoyed some of the stuff that comes your way. And so I wasn't being a very good husband. And I admit that, and, I admit all the blame for that divorce and everything. So, but, basically that song was kind of depicting the scenario where you're with somebody and you realize, hey, I'm going to give this up and give this relationship a shot because it's worth it. And I think a lot of people go through that. A lot of people do that. They actually end up maybe throwing in the towel in this business, and probably a handful of other businesses as well. And it's it's at the end of the day, it's really about being less selfish, maybe. Focusing your everything on your relationship, on your wife, your significant other, to try to see that through, because sometimes that's worth it. Sometimes that's what matters the most. And that's really what the song is all about. I knew, but like I said, it was kind of hypothetical. It's not something that obviously that I went through with, because I'm here and I haven't sold my guitar. But
right.
But I just thought that it was a cool way of saying that. I thought it was a cool way of saying, and it's funny. I think me and gosh, I hate to say this. Might have been Brandon Kenny, but I know I got together with him and Ben Hayslip, who Ben's had some hits, And I think, I think Brandon had to leave or something. So me and Ben just hung around, and I already had a lot of the song, I think, written. And we just sort of finished it up in one day. And it was nothing that, to my knowledge, ever even gotten, it never even got pitched to anybody else. And, and I'm glad. I mean, it's still one of my favorites as far as stuff I've written. And I knew when I had that song that it needed to be the title of an album, because there's so much comes to mind, I think, when you hear that, guitar for sale. It's like, all right, what's behind that? What are all of the, layers of whatever that led to saying this, I mean, I remember too hearing songs over the years of guys that are essentially writing songs about quitting the business and getting off the road and giving their relationships a shot and that kind of thing. It wasn't a new idea necessarily, but I think that way of saying it was, and I always tried to make sure that I tried to say something in a little different way. But but it was I thought a really good album title. The song "Living This Way," man, was just and it's still one of my favorites. I play it all the time. It's just about kind of where I was when I got divorced. There were a handful of songs that came out of that era that were all, a lot of times you kind of marry up a really maybe negative lyric to a groove that's a little more up tempo. And, it's not like you're fooling people, but you're at least not dragging them down into the muck with you,
and
every now and again you have to do that. But, with this one, man, I was getting wasted and, doing some drugs and, just honestly living like a fool there for a while. I was living in a little 1-bedroom apartment here in town. And, I literally had a view of a brick wall across the breezeway. It was, it was not a good period in my life. And that song was just all about it. I mean, I was living this way and didn't really care what anybody thought, and don't try to make me stop, because this is how I'm dealing with shit right now. And so that's, and I think that's one a lot of people I know can relate to. You got to learn stuff the hard way, I think, and if you're living like that, after a while, something happens, you lose friends, you maybe have some sort of health episode or whatever. In my case, I was dabbling around in cocaine a little bit, and that wasn't something that I was proud of, but it's something I kind of got mixed up in for a good little while there. And this is all just trying to be honest, and I'm glad that part of my life went away. But a little side note too, man. I mean, they actually used that song on the Netflix show The Ranch. I don't know if you ever watched that, but
okay.
But season 6, episode 6, they featured it at the very beginning of the show.
Oh, cool.
So that was neat too, man. That was cool. But yeah, that's one a lot of folks mention. And dude, Sobering Up, man, I'll tell you, Sobering Up was an older one. We wrote that song on the bus. We were deadheading going from Nashville out to Salt Lake City. We were going to open for Randy Travis, and we were excited about that because we just had him record a couple of songs, and me and my guitar player Philip Moore, who was also my producer at the time. We co-wrote a couple of songs that Randy recorded, so we were really excited not only to go and open for him, but to get to sit in the crowd afterwards and watch him sing the song. The main one was called "Pray for the Fish," and it was a big crowd favorite. But but on the way out there, we had a lot of downtime on that bus, and for whatever reason, that idea just kind of entered my brain, and me and my buddy Philip sat in the back of the bus and wrote it. And we had, we loved it so much that we literally worked it up and started playing it on the road that trip. And, people were digging it or whatever. And we had a couple of the record label people at a couple of shows, though. They got a little bit irritated at me for playing it because, I was playing something that wasn't available yet to be bought or whatever.
Always searching for that dollar, right?
And yeah, I mean, but we were excited about it. I mean, we were living the life of musicians. I mean, that's how we work. It's like you come up with something new that you love. It's natural. You want to try it out on folks. But I ended up recording that on a record for Warner that never came out. My second album for Warner, we recorded like 10 or 11 songs, and things kind of went south there, and that label, well, that album ended up kind of getting put on a shelf. So a lot of the songs are just sitting there collecting dust for years, but when we got around to recording Guitar for Sale, I decided, man, it's time. I've been wanting to put that song out for a long time, and so we recorded it. And for a while there, I think Jake Owen was toying around with cutting it. He was playing it in his shows. As a matter of fact, we used to see YouTube videos of the crowd listening to it, and they ended up telling us, of course, you get all kinds of excuses, but I think his producer said it was too country for what they were doing at the moment or whatever. Those two words, man. I mean, there couldn't be, a phrase that's more hated by me than that, too country. But man, yeah, that song is the one that, another one, where you're just kind of saying something a different way than you've heard it before, pretty much about, hey, you're losing love for somebody, been in a relationship for a while, and maybe they ain't looking at you the same way they used to, and that's pretty much what that's about. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that one, man, because that's still one of my favorites from way back, and that song goes back 20 years. I think we literally wrote that on the road in either 2005 or 2006.
Wow.
So it's been a while.
One of the things I think that you do so well, and we're going to get into Ain't Always Thirsty, and I think that definitely is the case for this one as well. But talking about Guitar for Sale, like just that one line says so much and can say a lot of different things, right? But like for a songwriter or a musician, selling your guitar it's heartbreaking. You're like breaking, and you can kind of mention it in some of the lyrics, like this one's been right beside me, living out my dreams. I'm bidding an old friend farewell. So like saying so much in so little, and then also maybe even leaving a little bit open for interpretation. And I do want to, and I even mentioned to you before we got connected, is Ain't Always Thirsty is a song that I hold very, I think it's one of the greatest songs ever written. And
thank you, man.
And it does come back a little bit personally, kind of like we were talking about earlier. It's like it hit me in a time where maybe I wasn't making all the right choices, and I woke up with my boots on the couch, and there's a baby crying in the room, and the wife's, not all that happy with me. So that song hit me at a time where I was going through. It almost felt like the song was written for me, and I'm sure you've got some of those too, or at least some fans tell you that as well. Can you tell us, and even maybe give us a few chords of Ain't Always Thirsty?
Yeah, this song, man. I mentioned doing writing, living this way after I'd gotten divorced, and well, at the time I was just separated, but living in that little apartment, and this song also came along during that time period. And it was probably about a 2 or 3 week time period that these came about, and I'd pretty much written the whole chorus and most of the first verse, and I took it to my buddy Mark Stephen Jones, and Mark's a great songwriter, and I hate to even admit it because I don't want to cheapen it, but I bet we finished this thing in 15 minutes. And it was just, it was one of those things where, I knew I was living wrong. I knew I was doing some shit I shouldn't have been doing. And that, all the pain and all the misery that I was in was essentially my own fault, my own doing. And I just, just started playing these little chords, but it came out this way, and it was just so simple. But some of the best country songs over the years have been that very same way, and when we wrote it, I thought, man, I think we've got something special here, and I would love to see I'd love to see a bigger artist take it and make a bigger hit of it, or because it's crazy how many artists out there have, at least covered it in their shows. Creed Fisher is one that recorded it. He put it on an album, I think 3 or 4 back or something. My buddy Ward Davis, he plays it a lot, and I've seen so many videos on Facebook and YouTube and whatever of other people covering it, even women. And so it makes me feel good that I ain't the only one that felt bad. But I ain't no bad guy or loser. Lately, it's feeling that way. Last night I passed out with my boots on. Arms cold, lonely bed that I've made. I ain't always at the night when I make love. Sometimes I don't feel it. And I ain't often hurt when I let you. I ain't always thirsty when I. Y'all, it ain't like I woke up this morning. I'd be drunk by noon, pouring my heart out of the string. All about the peace. I ain't still with you. I ain't always when I think love. Sometimes I don't feel a thing. I ain't often hurt when I met you. I ain't always thirsty. Pretty dirt-ass simple.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that so much. We got Ray Scott with us here on the Midwest Mixtape podcast. You were just in Missouri. We missed you, but we're going to catch you again in Missouri Friday, April 19th at Springfield, Missouri at the Southbound Bar and Grill. And Ray, we're big fans
Fun
here.
place.
So appreciative of you and your music and your talent. And thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, buddy, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And man, look, I tell you, it's a lonely road out there sometimes for independent artists. So anybody like you or, all you folks out there that support us indies, man, from the bottom of my heart, and I think I speak for everybody else, man, thank you for spending your time listening, spending your money coming to shows, buying beers, buying swag, man. That keeps us going down the road, man. So God bless y'all. God bless you, my friend. Thanks for taking your time tonight.
RayScott.com, Friday, April 29th, Springfield, Missouri, Southbound Bar and Grill. We'll be catching you when you come into town, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
I get high, then I get low, so I get high again. I know this guy right down the road has got my medicine. I don't believe in letting life weigh down my mind, so when mine gets heavy, I know a way to make it light. Living this way will maybe take me to my grave a little earlier than most, but it won't change until I kill all of this pain. find a better way to go. Though you might say it ain't okay living this way. I was alone, I found love, then I was alone again. Call me wrong, but heartbreaks are rough. Hell, I'm just a man. I may be one drink closer to 6 feet beneath the dirt, but to me that's one drink closer to finally over her, yeah. Living this way, oh baby, take me to my grave a little earlier than most. But it won't change until I kill all of this pain.